Hey, Salvador Brakeman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. And on this channel, obviously, I talk a lot about crowdfunding, but one of the things that I've been trying to share a little bit more of is also some things when it comes to the story, as I've literally had to go through obstacle after obstacle to get to this point in my life. And if you're not familiar, I basically started my business in 2012. I got started as a blogger when I was in university, and lo and behold, I was basically studying the different categories on Kickstarter, and how, depending on which category you launch on, the variables that affect success are going to be very different. So I had this idea, this hypothesis, right? This idea, this theory that depending on which category you launch in, the variables that affect success are going to be different. However, at the time, Kickstarter was talking just in broad, very broad terms, like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that. But I was like, I think your social network is probably going to matter more in certain categories versus other ones. So I embarked on this whole journey of doing a mini econ thesis at George Washington University. I did this whole mini thesis. I did a logistic regression. And basically, I concluded that depending on which category you launch in, the variables that affect success are going to be different. So I definitively figured this out, and it really laid the foundation for a lot of my work in the future. So I started as a blogger, went from being a blogger and doing a lot of writing, written a bunch of books in the industry, Equity Crowdfunding Explained, Kickstarter Launch Formula, Nonprofit Crowdfunding Explained, Nonprofit Fundraising Hacks, Crowdfunding Personal Expenses. I've also written other books like Blogging for Beginners, Podcasting for Beginners, etc. I wrote a book called Little Thumb of America, where I documented me going back to discover my roots in El Salvador. I'm actually adopted, if you didn't know that. And I went back to discover my roots without any information, and I really just had this one photo of my birth mother. So I went to the town where I was from and passed around all over. And I won't spoil the story for you, but it led to some just a life-changing experience. I also wrote that book, Little Thumb of America. But that being said, one of the things that has consistently come up throughout my career is people are like, Sal, how do you have so much energy? How can you do all these things? How can you go from being a marketer to doing writing, to then doing speaking, doing YouTube, doing podcasting? How do you do that? And I just want to share with you and be honestly transparent that I haven't always been like Salvador Rigman. I haven't always been able to speak with such confidence and cadence, and just even being able to do a public talk or moderate. I would have such high levels of social anxiety when I was younger. And if you knew me probably when, were very much younger in my childhood, I was one of those really quiet kids who was just interested in writing and just interested in those kind of things. And I played sports and that kind of stuff. But I was never in this way so outlandish with my communication style. And it's something that is integral to me. This is who I am. But if you've ever struggled with being meek, with being monotone, with being quiet, with not being confident, and you've wanted to kind of step up and become that person that you've always known that you can be, if you wanted to discover your authentic voice, if you really wanted to sound resonant, and not like you're some strange robotic speaking guy, right? Or I'm a grand podcaster, or I'm projecting my voice and I sound like a caricature of me, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm really about discovering your voice. And this could be for starting a podcast, this could be for filming videos, this could be for just talking better in business situations, being more confident and feeling better about what it is that you have to say. And saying that with emphasis, man, and getting people excited and hanging on your every word. If this is something that you've wanted for yourself, I've put together a new resource for you. And this kind of falls outside of my usual work, right, with crowdfunding, but it's just something I felt like I had to do because so many people were asking for something like this. And especially when we do the coaching calls, I have coaching students, right? They're always like, I feel so nervous. I feel so uncertain. I don't know what to do or what to say, right? And I think my purpose being on this planet is to just kind of make things easier for people and to teach in a more fun and informative way and just kind of hold your hand along the path, right? And that path could be launching a new business, launching a new project, or maybe it's almost a little bit of a layer deeper where through this process of bringing something new into the world, you're actually becoming the best version of yourself. So I wrote this book that I'm going to link to down below. It's called The Perfect Podcasting Voice. And the idea behind this book is to share the things that I use, the techniques that I used in order to overcome all of these obstacles which held me back for so many years. and that kept me from being able to share the information that I've always wanted to with people, and to being able to just touch the world. To be on coaching calls with people whose lives I've changed because of my voice, because of my podcast, my YouTube channel, is just, I filled me with so much gratitude. And I would love the same thing for you. If you can have that massive influence of persuasion, that skill, that ability, literally on command, that is what I'm talking about. It's almost like a light switch where you can just turn it on and turn it off when you want to. So if that's something that's interesting to you, first of all, go and check out the link down below for the perfect podcasting voice. This is a guide, this is a book that I put together for you, and basically just to give you a little bit of a primer. Number one, I put together a lot of the techniques that I use in order to warm up my vocal cords. It's almost like a muscle where if you're going to be playing volleyball, you're going to be going on a run, you're going to be going to the gym, you got to warm up your muscles, especially as you get older, right, man? You got to warm up those muscles in order to perform well. So I share some of the ways and some of the techniques that I use to do that. In addition, I talk about some of the singing techniques that you can use to change the modulation of your voice to sound more interesting, to sound more engaging, right? And to put feeling into your voice. And I think that one of the things that's really stood out, at least among all the people that I've talked to, is the way that I can kind of pack a punch, right? And really cause someone to feel something just as a result of consuming a video or watching one of my shows or listening to my podcast or something like that. And I've literally replicated how you can do the exact same thing using some of these little known techniques that singers actually use in order to affect the audience in an emotional way. And it's one of those things where you're taking different disciplines and combining them together in order to have a completely creative new way of teaching a subject. But I go even more in depth into that. I go into how to go from sounding monotone, meek, quiet, into commanding, right? Into having something important which you're trying to convey and having people listen to you. How do you go from that quiet, meek, shy, monotone version of yourself to confident, assertive, and sounding like a boss? Let's just be honest here, right? How do you do that? I share with you the steps that you need to take and that predictably and reliably will get you there. And also the vocal inflection techniques that you might not even be aware of that you're making, that all of a sudden once you've learned this, you're going to be like analyzing your own voice. You're like, oh crap, like this is why I sound so bad, right? All of a sudden it's almost like you see the world differently. And I know that sounds kind of like woo-woo or whatever, but think about anything that you've learned, right? Let's just say you've learned a little bit about houses and like you start to look around and you're like, oh, look at that. Like I understand now the materials around me. I understand this lighting fixture, or I understand that this floor is made of tile or drywall and what's behind that. And you just kind of see the world a little bit differently. Or for you, maybe that's something a little bit different, like you're learning a sport. So let's just say that you're learning tennis. And before you would just watch tennis and you'd be like, okay, a ball goes back and forth. All of a sudden you start to learn more about tennis. You're like, oh, I saw that technique that was implied there, right? Or I see this strategy. I see what's going on here. I see how they're, going at the baseline, how this guy's trying to get him up to the net and then do an overhead kind of hit, right? So just by learning a new subject, you start to notice things differently when you encounter that subject. And the same thing is going to happen with this. You're going to start to notice your own voice, and you're going to be able to correct it like that, and just slowly inching you towards that best version of yourself. So these techniques are powerful, man, and you got to use them. But if you do use them, I virtually guarantee you that you can make rapid progress with your voice. And maybe that's something, like I said, wanting to start a podcast, wanting to do something more public with a YouTube channel, wanting to film a Kickstarter video, or just wanting to sound more confident and assertive when you're talking with people in business situations. So again, the perfect podcasting voice. Hope you like it. Really hope that you enjoy it. And give me a thumbs up if you like this video. I'll see you next time. Again, my name is Sal.